Are the Dead Sea Scrolls potentially the most vital and important archaeological find to date, especially for the Christian, due to its importance of how it backs up what we read in our scriptures today, especially surrounding the Old Testament? Now, in today's video, guys, we're going to dive into three main questions. The first question being, what are the Dead Sea Scrolls? The second question being, how were they discovered? And then the third and final question that we'll go into more detail in is going to be, what exactly did they find? So with this being said, guys, what are the Dead Sea Scrolls? I wrote it down like this. They are a collection of ancient Jewish text written between the last 3 centuries BCE and the 1st century CE. So we have an idea of how old and ancient these texts are. To give you perspective, guys, that's like 2,000 years old. How were they discovered? Well, they were discovered in 1947 in a region called Qumran, which is located near the Dead Sea, which is why they're called the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were discovered by a shepherd of goats named Muhammad, and he had thought he had lost one of his goats, went looking for it, and came across a cave, thought the goat may have wandered into that cave, took a stone, threw it in the cave to see if he can kind of scare the goat out or listen for the goats moving around. And instead, what Muhammad heard was actually the sound of pottery breaking. Now, that led him to then search deeper into this cave to figure out what exactly that was and what type of pottery that was. And that's when the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls came alive with that. And then eventually, from that finding, it led people to go out there and start just searching throughout that region, eventually coming across 11 separate caves with findings of pottery that had manuscripts inside of them. Now, the next question, which leads into that, is what exactly did they find? So with the searching and the finding, they found quite a few different things. So the one thing that they did find was biblical text. So the books that we have in our Bible today, in the Old Testament, they found either full manuscripts or fragments of manuscripts. They found countless things surrounding the Old Testament of the scriptures. And the most important, but the one that they did not have in there was actually the book of Esther. So every single book in the Old Testament was found in these scrolls, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, except for the book of Esther. But the one that really just kind of puts the nail in the coffin of proof that the scriptures have not been messed with from when they were first written was actually they found the entire scroll of the book of Isaiah. And when they went through it and read through it in its original language and then compared it to what we have in our Bibles today, there were minimal differences. And the differences they did find were either spelling or grammar, like punctuation and whatnot. So there was actually no change to what was being taught in the book of Isaiah. What we read in the book of Isaiah here is going to look exactly like what was written on the book, on the scrolls in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The other thing they found, and correct, be kind to me with my pronouncing of these words, but apocryphal text. Now, they found apocryphal text, which you'll find in Catholic Bibles. Now, the Christian Bible has 66 books from Old to New Testament, but the Catholic Bible does have more that you'll find in their Bible. And the reasoning why Christians don't align with having those in the Bible we hold today is due to the teachings that were in there. We see a lot of contradiction and false teaching in those books, but I can go into more detail about that in a separate video. And then the other thing that they found were the pseudepigraphal books. Now, these books were ascribed to authors, but not written by those authors. For example, one of the most famous ones is actually the book of Enoch. That was written 200 plus years or whatever. It's like, give an example. It's like if, Francis Chan or John MacArthur were to pass away today, and then 200 years later, someone comes out and says, "Oh, hey, look, John MacArthur and Francis Chan wrote this book," and they had written that book recently, but then we're saying it was written by Francis Chan and John MacArthur. It just wouldn't be the case. And so there's quite a few books that were discovered that were supposedly, said on their titles, like written by this author, but they actually were come out to be fakes. And so that's actually what that word pseudepigraphal means is fake. The Lord has graciously kept his word throughout the centuries and decades of people touching it and reading it and discovering it and all those things. And so this just gives us hope. This gives us hope, especially with the book of Isaiah, knowing that we have a book that was written thousands of years ago, and we can look at our Bible today and go, and it lines up. And we can look at those fragments and other books that they found, and it's the same thing. We can look at those and we can say, it lines up with what I'm reading. There would be a concern if all of a sudden they were looking a lot different, but the fact that they don't is encouraging. And it goes to show you that the Bible hasn't been translated and messed with and jacked up with over the years, but that it's been preserved in a way that the Lord continues to use it, and we can hold fast to it, and we can trust this. We can trust what we're reading in here is truly from the Lord.